I'm lucky enough to be joined here by Shay Folk. Shay's a strategic consultant and agricultural expert with AgView Solutions from Iowa, lives in Illinois. So not the only person I know that's gone to a worse tax code, myself included. And he specializes in farm transition, strategic growth, profit management, and is a newly minted AI wizard, and has been spending a lot of time going around. Shay, how many folks do you think you've spoken to in the last 3 months between all of the conferences and all the meetings you've been doing?
Yeah, probably about 1,000. We, on top of that, have run several surveys that I gave direct engagement to, answering probably 500 people's questions. So 40 to 50 one-on-one direct consulting meetings. We had 150 at our conference in Phoenix, Arizona, or 165. And on top of that, just all the podcast questions that come in, the X engagements, and those survey questions. So it's been a good few months here.
So a lot of feedback there, and then as a North Dakotan, I often like to think we tend to see things, certain stuff in the I states take a while, and like culture takes a while to get to us. But when it comes to agricultural trends, we're usually 5, 7 years ahead when you think consolidation, some tech adoption. Sadly to say, Saskatchewan might even be further ahead than us, and so we're lucky to be joined by Evan Shout. Evan is the co-founder and chief financial officer at Maverick Ag. That's another business consulting risk management group up in Canada. Also co-founder and coach at Farmer Coach, and works with primary producers in both Canada and the U.S. And then both of these guys host podcasts. For Evan, the Truth About Ag, and then the AgView Solutions, the AgView Pitch for Shay. I think one of the things that I really love about Evan and Shay is that they're both not shy about bringing it in. And as somebody who has a first kid on the way, I also appreciate how they both bring that in. If you haven't checked out some of Evan's writing there, I will actually say a nice thing about Evan to his face. It is like some of the
One,
best writing
one
that
city.
I've read. So now that I got the nice thing out of the way, let's start with the smarter one. Let's go with Shay. I'm joking on this, but we all know each other a little too well. Shay, how about you kick us off? Like Beyond X, coffee shop, conferences, platitudes. Like, what are some of the big things that we're actually seeing happening, tangible for some of the operations that you're working with?
Yeah, great question. The big picture or the big method in some of the decisions that are being made right now is how do we handle these step change scalability opportunities that are happening. These are rental arrangements, these are land purchases, these are acquisition of entire businesses essentially, and that's farm operations in that 1,500 to 2,500 acre range that don't have someone coming back into the business. That's a couple, two, three, $4 million of capital outlay between cash flow and then how do we manage some of the debt that's associated with helping them do that transition. And then just how do we scale efficiently from a people management side on the back end? The numbers make sense 7 ways to Sunday with most of these if you know what the numbers are. And I think the foundation that the conversations we've been having is even some of the best operations don't have as good of a grasp on where they think that they are or where they want to be moving forward. So we've been working with operations on how do you attack those challenges? How do you know your numbers? Like truly understand what decisions can be made moving forward. And it's diligent work that needs done before you go headfirst into the opportunities that are going to present themselves over the next 5 to 10 years.
Shay, paint the picture, either let's just say acreage sizes or even percentage of operation jumps, just so like we're actually making it a little more tangible.
So I wrote down 4 examples here. I had an operation in central Illinois call me, 1,250 acres, all owned ground. They have 500 head of cattle, no transition apparent partner. The challenge is they don't know what they want into retirement. So how do you decide who you want to transition to? And we were talking earlier, the Wall Street Journal article posted that sob story about, oh, I farmed 1,200 acres in Indiana and I got no one to take over. Well, you have 5 siblings that are business owners that can't make a decision. Why would you want to be part of that? So that's one. Had an operation in the southern US reach out to me. They're farming about 3,500 acres, have 2 adjacent businesses. They're ready to just sell out, hand it over. Can't find someone that they feel is competent or that has the financial stability to do it. So that was a call I had this week. had a 6 to 8 thousand acre operation in the northern U.S. decide that they just wanted to be done, want to hand everything over next year. All rental opportunities that will transfer well to the next person. So, if you're a 2,000, 4,000 acre farm operation, how do you handle that type of change? And then the general theme I would say that's consistent in the Midwest for a lot of the row crop producers that we work with is just several thousand rental acres coming up. I've had people say we had an opportunity to pick up 1,000 acres last year and 2,000 acres the year before. Their growth curve is exponential at this point. So the biggest thing again is just you have to have the preparation in place. You have to be able to run the scenarios and know what you're capable of from a management standpoint, but also what can you do financially. And most people aren't there.
I mean, this sounds like pretty much listening or I mean, just even some of the conversations, Evan, when we first met, 8 years ago. I mean, break down some of your experience, what you've seen. And again, I think you guys are what, like 7, 8, 9 years ahead of kind of this curve in terms of what you see up in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, like I think the big one for us is that it's still a business, right? Same business problems that Shay's bringing up are identical in both countries. The big one for me is that in Canada, I've been out east speaking, I've been the west speaking, and I mean out east, we're playing in the same game as you guys, a little bit smaller acreages. I mean, somewhere in the range of 30 to 45,000 bucks an acre, highly diversified. How do you scale? And to be fair, should you scale, right? Like
Mm.
that's the one question nobody wants to talk about is should we actually be continuing this trek? And then when you come out to West, well, yeah, consolidation is rampant here. I mean, our farm sizes scale from, I mean, our smallest farm would be in the 3,000 range, and our biggest is 40 to 50,000. And you talk about growth. I mean, 3 years ago, we added 10,000 to our operation in 1 year. So 25% growth rates. And I've seen that numerous times with our clients. And it's not just how or should we, and obviously knowing the numbers like Shay mentioned, but it's can we actually get the access to the capital to do it? So we're in a little bit different boat. I mean, our banking structures are slightly different, but I mean, some of the bigger risks that our guys are talking about are A, are the banks going to pull back? I mean, we're starting to see a lot of articles about land, we're going to hit the 80s, it's going to fall. Like what's that plan? And is that even an effect, to be honest? I mean, lots of guys are risk managed to a point where I don't think that has near the effect it probably did back in the 80s. And then the other one is when we start expanding, are the banks going to be our friend or our foe? And if they're going to be our foe, what's the step to continue these accelerated growth? Because the farmers we work with, they're addicted to the game. I mean, they want to play. They like consolidation. They see it, and whether the industry likes it or not, we'll talk about rage baiting later. But that's kind of the farms that we're talking to these days. Is those that know their numbers, those that understand the game, and just need to know the rules so they can actually continue.
Evan,
So,
I'm curious on, the work that you're doing with the consulting
Yep.
of the operations that you've had an opportunity to work with this year, and not picking on anybody, but how many truly know their numbers versus those that think that they know their numbers?
I'd probably say, I mean, I'll go back to the story. Like we had Dick Whitman on a couple of calls with us when we were talking standards in Canada.
Mm.
And he asked the accounting firms, how many had accrual financial statements. And the two big accounting firms are like, all of our clients. And then Dick says, well, no, how many had it throughout the year? And then how many did you guys just make that? And zero, to be honest. So we're no different than the US. We're quite a bit behind on actually knowing the numbers. I do have farms that do monthly financial statements. They know their key KPIs. They go to the bank and tell the bank what they want, not vice versa. So there is, let's call it the one percenters. But you're correct. The majority, they pay us to know their numbers, and that's probably not the right mentality because honestly, I want them to know it when they come to us, not before. But
Mm.
you're correct.
Yeah, and I had an event in Fargo, spoke right after Dick actually, and I had everybody in the room stand up. I had a series of 5 questions. There was like one couple left standing afterwards, but the first question was, if you went to your lender and told them your cost of production to the penny, would they believe you? And like 87% of people sat down. And of the 13% that were still standing up, I would question whether that's the reality or not.
Well,
I
and
mean,
I did the same thing in North Dakota. I mean, I asked some of your producers what a good price for canola is in North Dakota, and you hear a couple of guys shout out a number, and it's like, well, none of you told me you had accrual financials, so I need to know how you came up with that's a good number, right? And guys rely on gut check and emotion and what they believe is a good number, but you're correct. Without knowing that true break even, I mean, I know our break even's 1282 on canola, so I now have a marketing plan where you know the TPAP stats as well as I do, Shay. Most producers don't have a cost of production, so what they think is a good number means absolutely nothing.
Mm.
So I'm sitting there, I'm staring a big opportunity in the face right now, and we'll keep on there and we can talk about the areas where that doesn't happen because we're all lucky where we get to work with folks in a broad spectrum, right? So it's like
Yep.
easy for that to rise. It's hard when the opportunity doesn't come right to you. But like, how do I start triaging these things like very tangibly and tactically? I mean, you talked, Evan, about like, should I even go? So, like putting numbers, putting a long-term strategic plan. I know Dick Whitman talks about that a long time. Like those things are important. And like we all know they're important, especially on the capital side and like where that goes. But I come and I see a 1,000 acre swing, and that's a pretty big chunk of growth. Like, where the heck do I start?
Yeah. I think the big one for me is that the numbers, whether I'm numb to them now, Ben, or not, but the numbers on the balance sheet don't matter. I mean, the debt, man, I got farms with hundreds of millions of dollars of debt. It doesn't phase. The big one is, are the key ratios in line? I mean, there's three, let's call it the Bible, call it what you want. We got working capital, debt service, and debt to equity. And if those three are all in the green, I'm a green light. And until I see some of those start to flounder or start to get into the yellow, you're correct. I mean, we're on expansion mode, and to be fair, some of the risks we're talking about up here aren't how do we do it anymore. It's should we do it on the opportunities that are coming. I mean, the last 10 years, guys have just jumped on everything because it just hasn't been available. Well, we know the demographics in ag. Most producers are over 65, 10% are under the age of 40. We're going to see a big shift. And I think the biggest lesson for guys is just be choosy and know your numbers and make the right choice because the wrong opportunity could probably hurt you just as much as the right one could make you more benefit, right?
Ben, can I screen share here real quick?
Yeah,
Yep.
send it.
So the exact thing that Evan just said is how do you know which opportunity is a good opportunity? And I had a gentleman out of Iowa reach out to me and similar, he said, I had 2,000 acres the year before, 2,000 acres the year before, and it's like I've just said yes to every opportunity. And a lot of what we do on the consulting side is how do you manage those opportunities? But I wanted to build a framework that anybody could kind of go in and change. And on top of the working capital, debt service, and debt to equity that mentioned, there's also like managerial competency and does it align with your core values and your vision long term? So I put together this opportunity analyzer to say, how comfortable are you with risk, growth, work-life balance, legacy, and longevity, to give your personal ratings, plug in your financial goals, plug in what is the actual health of your business, so assets, liabilities, cash flow. I suppose you could add in, like you said, debt service, working capital position, and then lay out what the opportunity is, your actual investment, projected revenue, projected expenses, and then it'll populate, which of course I didn't have the information typed in here. But it'll give you a scoreboard and it'll say, this aligns 70% with your core values. It's a 80 on your financial outlook. It's a 35 that you're going to spend way more time in it than you want to. But then you have a foundation for internal dialogue within your team and maybe with the lender or with the strategic consultant that you're working with to go through and make those decisions. So I'll make this tool available for anybody that wants it here.
And
So Shay, we had in when we were at your conference, right? I mean, and I think I was listening to Chris on the marketing update. Like we're still $1 off from break evens after basic returns to management on beans, and we're like right around there on corn, right? And if I'm seeing these big swings coming in, like Evan, I hear you. Like, yeah, if everything's green, I'm gonna go. I don't think people like need to go to you guys when like everything green is gonna go. Like, I think that's like a little bit of a cop out answer for us, like, and like what we're sitting because if you look at like cycle investing and where you're at, and we don't know how far. What does Chris always say? Like, yeah, usually 3 to 4 year cycle, you just don't know which year you're in at and like where that goes. Like, how do I actually like sort through like right now if I haven't had that 1,000 or 2,000 acre swing right now, like what's my triage? So obviously I think you hit the first piece, Evan, on like look, basic liquidity and like
yep.
working capital and where that moves. But like what are some of the other things? I mean, we talk contribution margin all the time. Like Shay, what do you like you're doing this with a couple of these folks. Like,
Hmm.
are they penciling? Are they not? Like, what's the biggest driver of value? Like, just help. Let's maybe get a little less general and more of like, okay, what are the most common value drivers we see, and then what are the most common like mistakes out there?
So many of the operations that we work with are way overcapitalized or way underutilizing their equipment. And so if you can add that margin contribution back in, make that efficiency of scale work, it's like, well, yeah, we're in a low profitable or no profitable environment. Why would we want to add more acres and add more work? Well, if you can distribute that margin contribution over more acres, you actually reduce your amount of loss on a per acre tangible basis. And then when the opportunities come back up, again, back into the cycle, 2 years, 3 years down the road, whenever it is, your gains are so much greater because of the land base or the ownership or, whatever it is that you have there. And I'm sure Evan's seen this, kind of as the business has grown over the years, that you just have the ability to make those increases dramatically. So that's why you need to go out and seek the opportunities. I mean, you want to talk about triage, like if you're shot in the arm, you should probably put a tourniquet on as your first step. So a lot of you guys that don't know cost of production or don't have those things dialed in, like do the first things first. But in order to triage like the what you see coming, this tidal wave that you see coming, you have to go out and plan for this, and you have to like just be willing to take off some of these bites.
Well, and the two things, I mean, and Chase said them both, was scale fixes problems. And I know that sounds contradictory to what most believe. Scale literally fixes all problems. And what I mean by that is no different than his equipment metric. Is if you add acres, you're probably going to be more efficient on your equipment and labor side. Your cost of production on 90% of the numbers I run actually drops. So you see all these guys talk about high rental amounts or what the cost of interest today is on land. There's a good chance that your labor power machinery number will drop faster than your land building finance number will go up. So that's the low hanging fruit. The other ones, guys, and no different than your values on that chart, Shay. Most guys that come to us, they're not looking for profitability, like you said, Ben. They've already hit that. They're strong farms. They're looking for time. I mean, guys, they are looking to buy back some of their time, and honestly, with scale, allows you to invest in people, and that's the side that most don't look at. They see people as an expense, and when you start talking people as an investment, then there's ROIs. I mean, I'll be open with you. I got hired because I was an ROI. Hebert saw what I could do. I make him money. I don't cost him money. And that's where the scale allowed it, is that Christian couldn't have taken me on without the scale to get there. So building that team out is part of why you need to scale, because it allows you to step back and take time in the higher margin areas, whether it's marketing, whether it's some agronomy, whatever your skill is. But if you're so much into operations because you're at that size where you don't have the people, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot.
And Ben, I want to answer the reason that people do call us when they have these opportunities, even if they have like green light go across the board on their dashboard or their metrics, is they want confirmation. They want to make sure that they're not missing something. And frankly, I don't know how else to say this, but like the cost of hiring us is so minimal compared to the opportunities on the backside. They want to make sure that they're not missing something. They want to make sure that the opportunity is as good or that they're maximizing that opportunity as they move forward. That's why they're calling us.
It's honestly no different. Like we always think that ag is so special. That's no different than growth businesses all over, right? Like that's why they hire consultants to go in and get an outside view on where it goes. So you look at investment world, like spent a decent amount of time in private equity doing due diligence. Like we were confirming or denying what they had to say to help with that decision making. So it's not crazy. I think like one of the big things I saw from you guys is just like offensive defense, right? And like when we think about those time horizons, like you're helping with the tourniquet or you're putting a bandage on in the near term with cost management, and you're building for that competition in the future. The other thing I heard that like I've heard a lot from, I mean, frankly, from both of you is we often talk about through cycle investing, thinking about land values, commodity prices. When's talent available? When, like right now, if you look at the big ag companies and the people that they're shedding, like there is good talent on the market, and there is a great time to be able to go get that in that area. What I guess maybe the next thing that I often just see is like, I guess maybe one of the questions we got from Jeff just on reducing costs. Like I think we talked the equipment. I know you guys we had a little bit of an exchange before this, and some differing views there. Shay, I'm gonna let you kick off, and then
Oh,
let Evan and
sure.
Harry on.
Yeah. Woo.
Sure.
Yeah. So
I thought I was setting you up better, Evan, to be honest.
well, I was actually doing the meeting prep here. Evan doesn't do that. So I was mapping out just and this is controversial, Vance calls it the descent paradox or the Peter Thiel paradox that almost no one agrees with. So I guess we'll put Evan in that camp. But there's opportunities for farms that have been sitting on a significant amount of working capital if they need to do machinery fleet upgrades right now of some low hour machines of new late model machines that still have some buying opportunities. I think that's going to go away here pretty quickly as some of these cash flows start to catch back up a little bit. So yeah, I know Evan's against like putting any working capital towards equipment if it's not absolutely necessary. The target audience here though is those that have not made changes and are seeing this scale. And then you're at a point where you're like, I'm maxing out my combine efficiency, I'm maxing out spray efficiency, and I'm spending way more on maintenance and repairs. It's like, let's look at these step change opportunities and make sure that we're preparing. And if that means getting into some late model equipment that's still at a discount right now, I believe personally that we're at the tail end of some of those opportunities.
Yeah, and I think part of it, guys, is that I think Canada's a little different than the US in this aspect right now. To be fair, I think you guys saw the machinery drop faster than we did. So for us, right now, I mean, don't get me wrong. Majority of my clients, everybody's got iron disease in agriculture. They all like the shiny iron. And for us, it's more, do I see equipment in Canada dropping over the next few years, especially in the used market? 100%. So for me, it's not necessarily that I don't want the upgrades. It's that I don't want to own the equipment right now in a falling market. So for us, a lot of guys, it's, well, should we buy today? And it's like, well, you know what? I'm probably going to push you out probably 12, 18 months because I do believe you're going to get the buying opportunities in the future at a much lower number. Now, at the same time, we're seeing 6% increases in the new price. So am I rolling guys into new? No. And I think that ship sailed, to be fair. I mean, even on our operation, yes, we flipped a couple times the last few years. Right now, ours is to hold fast. I mean, we bought two tractors at auction last year, so even our philosophy has shifted based on the market shift. So it's not necessarily the upgrade of equipment operationally that we're looking at as tight as probably what you guys are. We're looking at it from a market standpoint where I believe that we're going to upgrade. I just don't believe it's in the next 12 months because I think we're going to see a demise and I don't want to be holding the equipment when the floor gets pulled out underneath. That's
And
probably.
yeah, and to be fair, I mean, I'm talking to the top 5% of people listening to this that are maybe in in this scenario. The the 95%, and maybe this is a more pertinent thing for most of you listening, is people are getting annihilated on depreciation right now, and they're not calculating it at all. And the operations that are looking at transition planning, talked with a gentleman out of Indiana 2 days ago, and they're sitting on something like $3.2 million of equipment for a 2,000-acre farm operation. I mean, at 20% cost of ownership, you're 600,000 in depreciation on an annual basis that's eventually going to be gifted. But it's like it's running down your leg right now on what you're giving away in depreciation and not realizing that eventually you're going to replace that machinery or you're giving up all this investing, like working capital investing opportunity in the meantime that will have dramatic benefits on the back end. So I think there needs to be some serious soul searching there from a cost standpoint.
The other big one, Ben, that we're finding, and this, don't get me wrong, this one even caught us off guard a little bit, was the cost of production I can make work. I mean, when we went from 790s to X9s, we dropped two or three combines. I can get the cost matrix to work on trades right now. The one I can't is the debt matrix. So the
Yes.
cost of production might stay similar, and that allows us to at least fight for break even or profitable in 26. Adding the debt matrix pulls into our debt service, which then really hurts the land appreciation side. Where if I'm going to invest, I'm not investing in depreciating assets right now. I don't even want to own them, to be fair. I'd rather rent my equipment. It's the land that we're trying to open up the debt service on. And those flips is what's actually hitting the debt service number way harder than cost of production. So it might work on one aspect of your business. It might keep my costs in control, keeps my break even where they are. But by adding that massive debt load and those big balloon payments at the end, all of a sudden my debt serviceability has taken a huge hit, and 1.5 million on a combine over 5 years versus 3 million a land over 25 years. The debt service is actually lower on the land. So for us, it's taken away the accessibility to expand. And that's the last thing I want to do by buying equipment.
Ben,
Yeah, I
I know
mean,
you're
we had a
itching. I know you're itching to ask a question. Let me say one more thing here. So on the equipment outlook or the cost of production to wrap up Jeff's question here, I had an interesting conversation with Lewis Stearns on the agronomy side the other day, and I said, how many operations could go in and cut back all fertility expenses by 50 to 80% and have more profitability on the back end, even in year one, in 1 year, and this is a backwards again, like Evan said, we always say you need the bushels to reduce the cost of production, yada yada. But can you even run that scenario in your business and feel confident that if I backed all my fertility back 50%, backed seeding rates back 80%, what does that do on a projection basis to my bottom line? If you can't run that scenario on your cost of production, you probably have no idea what that looks like on land purchasing opportunities either. And so you just need to be able to make those decisions.
So I think what I a couple things that I heard from you guys. I mean, like first off, like what do we say? We're probably over equipped on where it goes, and
Yep.
like you're still looking at strategic opportunities, whether you think everything's just you're trying to catch a falling knife in Evan's world, or you think there's good buying opportunities in Shay's world on that, and that's probably to right size and where it goes. But I think this ties into like the big opportunities that we let off with, right? I mean, I think when we did those capital planning workshops across the Midwest, Shay, I mean, I think what we saw from folks is generally they could pick up 33% more acres with existing labor and equipment. That is
Mhm.
the lowest hanging fruit out there and hits on kind of the offensive defense that Evan had. I mean, I think we had one kind of question in here. It was just how do I figure out that capacity? Like if and like what is the let's say I can add I'm a 4 to 6,000 acre operation and like high productivity I states on where it's at. I could probably add 1,000 to 1,200 acres on that. Like how do I go find those opportunities? Where do I go and like how do I just like make sure that fits together like very simply?
Who you
Go,
asking?
go ahead, Evan.
I usually see which one's leaning in. So I guess maybe I'll ask the question a different way because we had another question on this. Like maybe I'm not seeing opportunities in the area. Like, am I really not seeing those opportunities in the area? Like, what's
So two
Maybe,
two things that I'll say. You have to approach people now because if you're not doing it, someone else is. And the change at which this is gonna move is really, really fast. Um, and it doesn't mean go out sending letters of cash rent. I'm not saying that's the approach, but just make it known that you're interested and see what opportunities are available. Most operations, as you say, Ben, suck at like promoting themselves. And how do you just share what you're doing and what your interest and strategy is from a scalability perspective, like Evan said. The other thing is I've had 3 or 4 conversations over the last month of people that are looking at these opportunities that are maybe 50, 100, 300 miles away because you can run pods or you can run separate areas and make it make sense. And there's some strategic collaborative opportunities that this might be between you and someone else, or you might, have a buddy in Indiana and you're in Illinois that they might not have the financial stability or feel comfortable doing it. But can you guys come together and take on that 2,000 acres or take on that 3,000 acres? And I think getting outside of your radius has been a conversation I've been having a lot more. Radius for most people is like if it's within 15 miles, I'll farm it. And that's just not realistic for where these opportunities are. I mean, I could give a young person interested in moving to the southern US an opportunity of a lifetime right now. But no one wants to live in, West Texas or Oklahoma or Arkansas. And so what's your willingness to look outside of your operating radius, and have you truly considered what that might mean to your operation and to the future of your legacy?
I probably got two answers there. And I mean, ties back to some of what Shay said was I think I presented 2 years ago down there with you guys, I think, Shay, at the
Hmm.
conference.
Yep.
And the one question I asked Ben was pretty straightforward was how many farms have a website? And I think there was 400 in the room and not one held up their hand. And I'm not saying you got to be a social media guru or a public relations master, but to be open with you guys, majority of our land deals and majority of our HR policies all come out of our social. So we go overboard. And I mean, you've probably seen a million different posts about a million different things that we do. There's a reason for that. And it's not just ego. It's literally based on we have multiple resumes sitting on Christian's desk every single year. for hire, whether it's from New Zealand, whether it's from US, whether it's from Canada. And on the other side, our landlords get to see pretty much open source what we do. So the brand actually matters. And I had a conversation with a guy and he won't put a decal on his truck because when he goes to town, all the other farmers heckle him for it. They make fun of him for it. And it's like, are we really at this point in our careers where this is the way we treat agriculture? I mean, every other construction company in town's got a logo. And then when you start looking at it further, it's the headhunting side, right? So labor up here, it's tight. Like we got shortages, and if you want good labor, the days of putting an ad in the paper, those are gone. So majority of our hires now are headhunting. Like, do we want a mechanic? Yeah, we're probably going to go to the John Deere, the Case, or wherever and pull a mechanic. Do we need another CPA on staff? Yeah, I'm going to walk into an accounting firm and I'm going to steal a CPA. Like those have to be the mentality when it comes to hiring, but that's also in the landlords. I mean, we all have rural municipality maps up here. Look around you. Which farms are 65 without estates plans? Like what it's pretty easy to walk through that RM map and say, that's possible, that's possible, that's possible. And I'm not saying, like Shay said, don't go out and just start throwing rents around, but walk in there and make a relationship. I mean, networking matters in agriculture. And I know most guys go to farm shows to look at equipment. I don't get 2 blocks in a farm show without having 300 conversations. Like that's what networking is, and that's how you make those landlord relationships. And then the last one, when we talk about plots, I mean, our farm is 100K tip to tip, and we're not even plot farming. That's our main base. So for us, I mean, up here, obviously consolidation is a little different, and size and scale is a little different, but there's multiple farms up here that are farming multiple plots in different areas. The biggest one is it's going to tie back to HR, and we know that HR in agriculture is a bit of a struggle. So maybe that's the hire we need to be looking for is who can actually manage people, because that's what it's come down to is if you want to do the plot thing, it works, especially if you can move equipment between plots in different time zones, because technically your labor power machinery number is going to shrink and you're going to be able to utilize that equipment for more acres. But it's usually the HR part that scares guys. It's not even the debt financing side, because you're right, you can go somewhere else and buy cheaper dirt or whatever it might be, but most guys don't want the headache of managing multiple teams.
Yeah, Ben, I'm just picturing Evan walking in and like grabbing a CPA by their jacket and just like ripping them out of the room. You're with me now. So
To
Well,
be
Evan looks
open,
like a
we
CPA.
have
Like he
we have
really
three
does.
CPAs on staff for a 42,000 acre grain farm and a consulting. That
Well,
that tells you.
that explains a lot about your sense of humor. So I guess we're there. I mean, I guess if I come
Ouch.
back and I like just try to summarize
Ouch.
where you guys are at, I mean, like I think the number one thing that I heard from you guys and like we hear consistently is like being proactive, and that doesn't mean trying to steal rented ground off your neighbor. Like matter of fact, it's the opposite of that in terms of like it's going out, making sure that especially retiring farmers, that is the biggest source of opportunity that we are seeing right now, and just being a good neighbor and being open to see, is there something you can do to help them with that transition? And also being respectful if you're not part of it in that. Like that is a huge, huge ask. And just like having that conversation, sometimes they just want to talk to somebody. Number two, talk to all the land people around you. Make sure they know you're interested in both rental and or buying opportunities on where that fits. Love the website, shout out. And like just throw some pictures out there. Let's shoot, like let one of your advisors tell you what you should put on your farm. Cause like I get pissed off that I can pitch most farms after 3 meetings better than they can. And it's just like one of the most annoying things I've seen in agriculture, because like there are some damn good farms out there that a lot of people would love to give opportunities for. And then maybe the last one that I see is it's actually the antithesis of I think like people like not wanting to stick their heads out too far, which is your reputation, your community is a huge like strategic multiplier for you. And like folks that treat the communities well are involved in them. Like they're the ones that often get those opportunities, especially if they get a little bit of an ask. So like take advantage of actually caring, because at the end of the day, especially if you are a mid-size or smaller farm, like that is your biggest lever against folks that might be in a better cost position on rented ground for you.
And
I
I want to share some
Gotcha.
sympathy here with what you're saying there, Ben, because I think a lot of people listening to this, they're just like, they're not comfortable, putting up a website historically or going out and having these conversations. And I say sympathy because, Ben, you can pitch AgView solutions better than I can right now. I'm not at Evan's level. I mean, I'm not at Evan's level, and we're making changes on that because we see how important it is. And um, I need to kind of talk the talk and walk the walk on the consulting as much as on the farming side of it. So we're making changes in that area this year. But if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I just historically haven't been comfortable, or the reputation thing, like Evan said, of, oh, people are going to go out and say Shay's doing this, Shay's doing that. It you don't need to worry about those people. Focus, like run your race and focus on your lane. And I think I just want to give people a little bit of encouragement there that I get that it's uncomfortable, but that's why you need to lean into it because that friction is where change is made.
The other part, and I didn't mention this one before, is we're starting to see up here, guys, is that the other option to scaling on your own is actually combination with other farms. So
Yes.
we've never seen this before. I mean, agriculture, we're rugged individualists. We like having our own operation. We like kind of winning and losing by ourselves. Well, up here, because of the scale issue, we've seen a lot of even I had two 10,000 acre farms do this year. They had different unique abilities. They had different strengths in terms of the leadership side. They combined, and by combining, I mean millions of dollars of equipment got auctioned because they didn't need it. Because combined, they had a synergy on the equipment side, which then lowered their cost of production considerably. They had different skill sets. So all of a sudden, you just added another skill set into the farm. One had high labor, one had high family. Well, now you've got your labor force and it's set for the future. And all of a sudden, they had enough acres that they were able to compete with the other consolidating farms around them. And don't get me wrong, guys, this is a far off one because I know a lot of guys don't want to do that. But for them, they saw it as a legacy step of their kids now can come into a bigger operation, have different roles. They don't have to be CEO. They could take on an agronomy role. And they've created a structure that has those roles available for the next generation as a way of kind of continuing the legacy, just not on their own, right?
Mm.
I mean, I was on a farm in Northwest Ohio on Friday, and four families, and they've
Yeah.
progressively added, and like the level of competence that comes in because they're each building on each other's
Mhm.
strengths. And I think like part of the reason that I think like you and Christian have been able to push is like you guys are two of the most competitive people I know. You push each other. And
Mhm.
like these folks are maybe not as type A as you two are, because like hockey players do hockey things. Thanks, Shorzy, on where that goes. But I think one of the best things is like they all looked around and we are in a bit of a zero sum industry. Like if you like let's just call a spade, and that leads to some of the shitty behaviors we see in this industry. You look on Twitter, people just throwing it. You look at some of the downsides of like living in rural community. I would say rural America, but north in our 51st state on where that
Yeah.
goes, on where
Wow,
that fits.
now I can't
But
release
Hill
Southern
Ridge,
Canada,
Hill
I
right?
Ridge
had
Street
Thanks,
to
is
Ben.
drop that
free.
once.
Thanks,
I'm
Ben.
Southern
Now I can't
Canada from
release
North
that.
Dakota, so it's fine, right? Like same, on where it goes. But I do think like that is one of the big things. And I know Shay, like I know like Chris has been working on that forever. I know that you guys teach that at TPAP. Like I mean, like I still think that comes down to being willing to have those conversations with neighbors. Like all this
Yeah.
stuff, like it seems so daunting until you're talking to a human and you're like, we click. We can make this work.
Yeah, and the example we always use is there's, 20 people you wouldn't want to farm with in a million years, but it's finding that one and having a conversation saying, hey, I think there's some synergies here. And the boat that you're in, if you're in your mid 40s, early 50s, wherever you're at in your career, but you're looking at this and saying this is a daunting task, guess what? Every other 40 and 50-year-old person is thinking the exact same thing. So what synergies can you create between those two operations from an efficiency? Just look at different areas. Maybe it's equipment, maybe it's HR, maybe it's the land management strategies, maybe it's the location, like Evan said, of if you can kind of separate those geographies. There are a tremendous number of ways to look at collaborative options to where everybody comes out ahead. You got to get out of your own way.
And the biggest one is you need to cut the ego side. And I mean, that's the hierarchy, right? I came across with Christian. Technically, he's my boss. Do you think he's ever seemed like my boss? No. We feel like business partners more than anything. And to comment to you, Ben, yes, we're both type A's. We are totally different people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you've talked to him, you've talked to me. Christian, put him in a negotiating room. That's his skill set. Mine, give me something to build, I'll build the back end. That's why I'm in the role I'm in, to be fair, is that I'm a builder. I hate networking. I can talk in front of people, but I'm an introvert at heart. Where to be fair, I think he actually gets better the more people that are in the room. So it is that essence of we had to have those personality traits that were different because if we were the same person, no, it doesn't work. So it's finding that one, like Shay said, 1 out of 20, not the same person, but still has a skill set that can create a synergy, essentially.
So I want to maybe shift into an area where I think we are seeing more and more indecision from folks that on a lot of the things that we've been talking about today, at a time that we think is really, really important given the amount of assets that are transitioning and opportunity that's up for grab. I'll be honest, like there are, I'll often sit down with a farm and it'll be, yep, we have that 1,000 acres we could pick up with existing land and equipment. And then they get this opportunity to go buy some land, and all of a sudden I'm seeing them freeze on where it fits. And I think from my seat, especially with what we do, and like we're willing to share in that depreciation risk. And so like usually the question is like, is this going to help you on contribution margin? Two, like, is this a worthy investment for you? And so yes, if it helps on contribution margin, and two, if you want to buy land. And then three, how the hell do I go finance that thing and make sure I protect, and should I protect cash and how much? So like appreciation versus cash flows. So I'm gonna break this out a little bit. Like one, buying land, still a good investment, still a core part of your operation. I'm going to share my opinion because I got some strong ones on this. But maybe Shay, I'll have you kick off like asset heavy. Is that an approach that I should even be considering as a farm?
It is. The land base is so crucial. And I would frame this, we work with a lot of operations that farm 3,500 to 7,000 acres that are like 95% cash rent. That's a really bad position to be in long term. They should be really nervous about that. And if you're in that position here today, I share that from the standpoint of you still have time to do something about it. You maybe need to look at the strategy of your business and say, do we need to be a 14,000 acre farm operation all rented, or do we need to be a 7,000 acre farm operation and work on buying land, buying 500, 1,000, 1,500 acres from a stability position standpoint? A lot of it comes back to the debt service, like Evan said earlier. That's why people freeze, because you're looking at principal and interest payments on $16,000 an acre land in the ballpark of $900 to $1,000 an acre. We need to have some down payment here in the States, and look at the loan to value options that the bank is willing to give. So that's one scenario of a high land rent. Probably definitely need to look at getting that land base on the up and up, and at least have some collateral on the back end to build that equity, because it's really hard to transition a 7,000 acre farm operation and get a senior member out of it if the only equity that they have is equipment. And how do you get paid for that on the back end? So that's
Yeah.
one scenario. The
Well, I
second,
mean, I just to hit that, I mean, there's the going the other way, right? Like what happens if you're 90% rented and we lose 1,000 acres because we were overexposed to one or two landlords who typically sell at the same time in a downturn on where
yeah.
that fits. Like that's our contribution margin going the wrong way. So that, I think there is more risk there than people are willing to talk about.
Yep. And the flip side of that is the operations that have a good owned land base, say it's 1,000 acres, 1,500 acres, and they're farming, 3,000 to 5,000. And the numbers are all relative here. So scale it to whatever situation it is on a percentage basis. But if you need to utilize that equity with something like Fractal, or look at how are we cost averaging our land, on the basis of $0 or $50 an acre on owned land with property taxes and all that, against $400 $500 principal and interest payments, if you're able to give a significant down payment, there's no question that that's a good option. The reason people freeze bend those, they've just not run the scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, everything Shay said is correct. The only things that I'd probably add are, I think, especially in Canada, and you guys can comment on the US, but I mean, for us up here, I think land has become a commodity. So in the past, I mean, and don't get me wrong, the bottom 80% probably still have an emotional attachment to land. They treat it like a teddy bear and they want to hug it all day. Where the top grossing farms, it's a commodity. They'll buy and sell just to get right location, a synergy, take some profit off. So it has become no different than any other asset class, where in the past, I think it's been held a little tighter. And what that's done is it's having these conversations of, do we take the risk? And I mean, in Canada, I think we still have a ways to go on appreciation. So if the risk is that I have to sell it 5 years from now to fix a banking issue and I make 10x profit on it or 30% on it, is that a downside? So 10 years ago, I mean, land was overpriced. 20 years ago, land was overpriced. So the guys who sat back and didn't make those calls are in a considerably worse position today than the other ones. They might have more working capital, but they missed out on a 10x investment that most of us would go back and buy as much as we could if we knew this was going to happen again.
Yeah. The biggest thing I think that is the answer to the question is like, what's the time horizon of the farm? And if that
100%.
farm, if you're trying to build it for 50 years, like what have rents done? And nobody talks about this. What have rents done over the same period of appreciation? They've gone up. And yes, like that cap rate or that cash return as a percentage of assets, that's
Yeah.
compressed just about everywhere. And you know what? That's probably going to continue to compress because where else can you get an asset that has the wealth preservation and the upside during downsides that you have? And that's really valuable from a portfolio standpoint. And there's other assets that have even less of that, gold being one of them, or Bitcoin, if our friend Vance is on where it goes. And so like you're going to continue to see that. The big thing is, especially as we go from more and more familial and local relationships to more professionally managed land, that rented margin, it's being more and more compressed.
Yeah.
And honestly, like the rental strategy of the 2010s of asset light, move in, scale, good agronomy, improve your contribution margin, like those folks, I think are going to get hammered in the next 10 years because they are not being realistic about what their future margin is. And so if you are optimistic about your own ability, your own market, and where agriculture will go beyond this cycle, like you need to own ground because you're going to capture that upside because it all just flows right back into the ground.
And
So
it's a risk mitigation strategy, right? Like if the farms that have no equity and they're sitting on all rented, if the ratios go bad, the ratios go bad. There's no fix. For us, the biggest plan B or the biggest ace in the hole that we have is that farms can push it. Like we can push risk up here because we've got enough equity base and there's enough debt serviceability that I can fix a ratio if it goes offside just because we took a chance. You got to remember, like farms weren't born to be entrepreneurs, but yet they all are. So most entrepreneurs have one or two fails throughout their career, three or four fails, who knows, maybe only one thing works. We got to remember that somewhat as farmers. We've been thrown into this industry that is highly volatile, highly complex. We're going to have failures. It's don't react off those failures and change the way you farm. So for us, if we had a failure, it doesn't change our plan. If we had to combine in the snow one year, are we going to go out and buy a whole bunch of capital to be over? No, it was 1 out of 10 years. So when it comes to land based, like I said, it's always been overpriced. That's always been the way we looked at it. Is it still a good buy? Yes. Is it still going to scale and make things work? Yes. Do you get equity? Yes. We're still treating two operations, right? We're a farming operation, a real estate operation. Where are we making our money? And if you look at the last 20 years, it ain't on the farming operation, it's on the real estate. So for me to say don't buy land now and just farm strictly, it doesn't work because it didn't work the last 20 years. It's not going to work the next 20.
with a podcast I did the other day, a friend of mine, Jake Hofer, had me on the land podcast, and he had a really good question. He said, Shay, I give you $10 million today. What are you buying with it? And I guess I would ask you guys the same question is, if I give Evan 10 million, I give Ben 10 million, how much of that are you putting towards land?
Oh, good question. I really could use a Lamborghini. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. I'm probably putting a considerable amount towards the one investment that's an inflationary hedge. You can't make more of it. I mean, land base here, it's still 15% appreciation in Saskatchewan. Across Canada, we're still positive appreciation. It's a safe investment, even if it drops, as Ben said. The time horizon for me is I'm not a young guy, but I'm not an old guy. My time horizon is 20 plus years. Land will be worth more in 20 years. Will there be some hiccups along the way? Who knows? I don't have a crystal ball, but in 20 years, land will be worth more. I'm putting it in land.
All of it?
As, as a financial investor, I'm putting 3 to 4 million in land. I'm putting the rest into like high returning private equity, like
I don't like
alts and where it
risk.
goes.
I don't like
If
risk.
if I mean I don't either, but I like that's where I like balance. If I could make money off that land, right? If I have that ability to like put extra margin on because I'm an operator on that land, it is a completely different story because my real estate business is securing my operating business. So that is how my operating business will make more money on it because that excess margin goes back to you. And so like right now, I think just to be like my rage bait is that I think that there are a bunch of really great farms out there that say they want to be around in 50 years who aren't looking at where this cycle and like what this opportunity is at enough. And like frankly, with where we sit, I mean, like we're a minority investor and we'll take that downside with you. I have a list of folks who I love sitting there talking to that like they just contradict themselves so much. I'll ask them like, where do you think land's gonna be in the next 0 to 2 or 3 years? It's gonna be flat to down. Okay. Where do you think it's gonna be over the next 10 to 20? Yeah, probably up in there. Where do you think rents are gonna do? They're gonna go up. They're gonna keep moving. How many acres can you pick up? I can pick up 1,000. Are you going to make more money on those? Yep, absolutely. Are you going to need more scale to be competitive and bring the next generation on? Absolutely. Excuse my language. Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you need to go pull some triggers right now. If as long as we're not putting the core financial, stability out of risk, and we don't have a people problem that could put that at risk, or important things like marriages, families, and whatnot. And I think
And
there's a lot of
here's
folks that just need to wake up and get moving. That's my rage bait for the day.
and here's why I asked that question is because I'm similar, Ben. I would do 30% to land, 30% to, working capital improvements on the farm, and 40% to off-farm investments, S&P 500, whatever. And I say it that way because I want the audience here to understand you don't have to sink every dollar into land. That's not what we're saying. That's not a strategic investment from a long term. But what's the practical applications? Because you got guys in this that know that they should buy land, have cash flow positive opportunities, but don't know what percentage is safe, or how much do we commit or overcommit. And you have people that are sitting on a significant amount of cash that have opportunities that look at what's a good number to use versus the working capital burn rate that we've seen in the US here the last 3 years. So, yeah, I mean, my answer to some of the survey questions I had 2 weeks ago on Vaclavic's survey was probably 30% of cost expense can go towards land. And if you're in an owned land position and you're not pushing up against that 30% from a long-term strategic standpoint, you probably need to take some close evaluation on why.
And the big one with me, guys, and why I'd probably go heavier into land than both of you right now is most of our land is what actually has funded most of our expansion. So working capital, I'll borrow from the bank. I mean, 5% rate on my operating line, we're making considerably higher return on equity. I'm going to use the bank as full as I can get. So for me, I'm putting it in as much land as I can. If I need working capital, I'll pull it back out of the land equity. I'll fix the working capital position. For me, the one thing with land is once you don't take it, the chance of ever coming around to get it again is probably zero. So for us, it's control. Is can I get the land in place? And then if I need the future financing to go put money into a venture capital or something else, I'll pull it from the land equity and do it. At least I still have control of the land at that point.
Yeah. I think let's go rapid fire. We got about five minutes left, and we'll get off our soapboxes on here. I'm gonna try to combine a couple of the questions that we have along with some of just like trying to sum up like where we've been. So if I think about like top three like tangible, most important things. So that's like again, we're framing not the average farm, like the folks that we work with that are out there that have some capacity and that are looking for the future. Evan, where do you start? Number one.
Tighten your economic units, get the machinery to the right amount of acres so that you have that ability to expand without having to put a big investment outside of land.
Jay?
You need to have a strategic rent plan or buying plan in place, know what you can actually do, have your ratios in line, and be comfortable to pull the trigger.
Well, just because I've seen this question a few times, what are like ratios? Give me the quick guidance on that from one or both of you.
Yeah, I'd let Evan answer that.
Working capital, I'm probably sitting at 1.2 to 1.6 because I'm not afraid of using the author or operating lines to use it. Debt service, I mean, the bank's up here at 1.15, which means you got about 15% more cash earnings than you do debt payments and drawings. And then debt to equity, I mean, the bank's up here at zero point 0.6, but I got banks that'll go 2 to 1, which means that they've got more risk than the farms do. And if they're going to let me, I'm going to push it.
Okay, so this is my number three because our banks aren't like we went through the
Not
80s
the
farm
same.
crisis, and like that's the thing that scares me about Canada, about like the way their banking system goes. Like I would say our banks are much more conservative right now. So like
Yes, they
my
are.
my like big thing is like, and of course I'm gonna say this, but I truly mean it even beyond Fractal. Like you better know your capital partners on where that sits. And like you need to know from your existing bank, you need to have a lender on the bench, listen to what a lot of what Chris at AgView will say on that. And you got to talk to someone. If you're not willing to at least talk to someone like us, like, are you really looking at like your plan going forward if you are trying to build a farm for 5, 15, 50 years? And when I see some of the biggest, most well-capitalized farms saying, oh yeah, if I put out even just how many landlord acres going to turn over, and they look at me and they're like, oh yeah, I can't pencil that. Like, see, somebody's got to be a fit.
Yeah, the big one for us is, I mean, we got six national banks and a farm credit. That's what we run off of, guys. You got hundreds of banks. Our banking system is so large that the chance of a bank pulling back outside of hitting covenant restrictions and stuff on your farm, we're a lot safer than you guys are. So I'm willing to push the risk with the banks a lot more.
Okay, so let's keep going through. Harrison, if you wouldn't mind putting the poll question in, if there are areas like off this that you want that like any of the three of us can help out, like hit in that, and it looks like yeah, good. It's a short answer on where that fits. All right, so I don't know. What's your next one, Evan? We'll just keep rapid firing around.
Oh God. So what do we say? We said economic units. The second one is I'm going to have as no different than what Shay said. I'm going to have my banking in order. So I'm going to have the lines of credit ready to buy land because the biggest one for us is if they pull up the driveway and you sign them a check, the land's yours. If you send them away because you got to go get financing after the fact, you're going to lose it to the neighbor.
Great. That was mine as like the capital providers, but thanks for doubling down because then it makes me feel good. Finally, you're willing to pat me on the back.
I'll pat you on the back.
Okay, there we go. Shay, what do you got?
A lot of the calls I've been having recently have been about terrible transition plans
Mm.
internally with the family. So get your house in order. If you don't have that fixed, none of this other stuff matters because you're growing a business with all this uncertainty in your future. And there's legitimately no excuse on why to not have the transition plan in place. I've made several tools here over the last couple months that make it pretty well seamless to at least get a base started. So get your house in order.
My second one is kind of a derivative of what you guys have been saying. It's map out the very simple version of what you think this year, next year, and 3 years out looks like from what you would need to spend, how many landlord acres you think could come up, and how much ground you would want to be able to pick up across both rented and owned and where that fits. And I can almost guarantee you are going to have both an exciting and a nasty surprise at the same time because there is so much dang opportunity out there. There are options to go finance it. You just have to like start planning and look at those constraints. And if you are reactive with capital providers, we don't like you. Reactive, like we don't just bend over for that because usually that's when your ratios have come down. So you're going to get a worse deal and you're going to get less capital available to seize those big opportunities. So all the people are just like, oh, I'm going to wait and see. That's tough. You have to be proactive on it. All right. If there was one last thought that you wanted to leave folks with, either just what they should do in their operation or what you're doing with them, Evan, you get first shot at it.
Treat it like a lifestyle. It's a really crappy business. You treat it like a business. It's a really great lifestyle. Does that sum it up for you?
Can't argue with that one. Shay, what do you got?
You know, from a strategic planning standpoint, there's a huge opportunity to get one in place because most people don't have a strategy. And if you don't have a written strategy or you don't have a framework, people get overwhelmed by this. And there's a tool I can't share it right now because I don't have it pulled up, but we used Dick Whitman's tool. I was presenting behind him the other day, and people don't put these strategies in place because it's overwhelming. Growth or how do we make economic decisions or how do we bring people in the business? People don't bite off those things because they're too much to chew or it feels like it. There's no excuse for that anymore. I mean, I took that information, I put it onto a simple web page that people can fill out, and at least the thought exercise of going through it, even if you don't like staple it up onto your wall and look at it every single day, the thought exercise for you to spend an hour to go through and say, what is my strategic business plan? Most people don't spend, this much time on it. They need to spend the majority of their time around strategy and development and implementation of the opportunities that are coming in. So my final thought is if it's strategy for land purchasing, if it's strategy for adding acres, improving margin contribution, being that farm for the next 15, 50 years, whatever it is, you need to have the strategy in place. And happy to share that after this too.
My last one is ask for help or at least talk to folks about where you're going because the farm CEO gets less support despite the complexity of the job than pretty much any role of similar complexity I've ever seen. Like as a CEO of an investment, like venture-backed investment company, I have so many resources that are just thrown at me accidentally, and it blows my mind at how little folks will actually talk about others in their business, whether it's something formal like consulting or just frankly just having a peer group, having just your set of network and just advisors to go talk to. And I think when you're able to actually talk some of these things out, get assumptions lined in, you'll realize that if you are a solid operation right now, not saying you don't have room to improve, but you're probably pretty competitive and a lot of these opportunities pencil. And if you take some of those opportunities to improve on top of that, like that next generation is walking into probably one of the most exciting times in agriculture. And if you look at ag, getting our asses kicked is usually when good things happen after. And I don't think that's blind optimism.
Well, I think the big one, Ben, is that we nothing we've said today, guys, is revolutionary. This is in every other industry. All we're doing is rehashing what all the other industries are already doing. We're just sharing it with you guys, and just because it's never been done before in ag doesn't mean it's not right.
Evan, what does your email signature say? Doesn't it say like amazingly, boringly or amazingly something boring, like just doing, I took that as doing the simple things right. Like it's
Yeah.
just do the methodical things like day in and day out. And maybe that's not what it's for, but I echo
One
that
of
sentiment.
one of the podcast guests, we said, what do you want for agriculture going forward? And he said, awesomely, excitingly boring. And part of it was just the volatility, the back and forth, all the complexity of these organizations. It would be nice if we could just create a business structure that was boring.
Hmm.
Well, on that note, I know we're at time, so we'll wrap up. Thank you to the folks for joining. Evan, Shay, thank you very much. Evan, if they want to go reach out to you, where do they go? We'll send an email too, but
Yeah, maverickegg.com or farmercoach.ca. Those are the two websites.
and Shay?
Agviewsolutions.com. Just email shay@agviewsolutions.com.
All right. My name is Ben Gordon. I probably should introduce myself at some point, but I'm the least important person here. Really appreciate you spending the time with us at Fractal and our partners here, and give us some feedback on this and what we can do. And good luck because these next couple of months are going to be full of a lot as we head into 2026. Thanks, gentlemen.